hear the song that we're singing. Come on, get happy. A whole lot of loving is what we'll be bringing. We'll make you happy. We'll make you happy.
Hey everybody, once again, I'm Jack Lombardo and this is Toy Talk. Now, right off the bat, I'd like to start out by apologizing for how long it's taken to make this 4th episode. All 5 of my children have been passing around severe colds, flu, strep throat, ear infections. There was a period for 2 weeks where I had at least one kid homesick every day. That was followed by February break where they continued to be sick, 3 more days past February break, and then just as I thought it was all out of the house, I got hit. But like I've said before on the show, problems come, life can be difficult, but it's all in how you handle it. One of the things I did over this time productively was that I got a lot of reading done. And one of the books I read became what is kind of the basis for this episode of Toy Talk. The book is called The Alchemist, and it was written by Paulo Coelho. Now, basically, what this story is it's a young man, and he's in a Spanish village, and he wants to travel the world, and this young man starts having recurring dreams that there's a treasure buried at the base of the pyramids in Egypt. So eventually, he gets some money from his father. He sets out on this journey to try to find this treasure. He ends up settling down. He buys some sheep, becomes a shepherd, and kind of settles in a field. And while he's there, he meets a king who comes to him and starts talking to him about what he calls seeking your personal legend. And he talks about how so many people have certain things they want to do with their life, or that maybe they feel specifically called to do with their lives. But as they go along, they end up settling and doing something else that's just a little more convenient. So the boy ends up selling his sheep and continuing on his journey. And as he does, he ends up being robbed. And without money, he ends up taking a job with a crystal merchant. And with this crystal merchant, things go very well. He helps him increase his business. And as he's speaking to this man, the man was a Muslim, and he starts explaining to him how he had completed 4 of the 5 pillars of Islam. But the one thing he had never done is make a pilgrimage to Mecca. And all his life he had intended to make this pilgrimage. But again, he started this business, he settled down, and he got to a place in his life where he just couldn't leave and make that journey that he'd always wanted to make. So eventually, from working for this man and building his business, the boy once again made enough money, went out, and once again, he was robbed. And he's thinking, you know, I'm just gonna get some more money, some more sheep, I'm gonna settle down. He ends up with a group of like Bedouins, of tent dwellers in a desert where he meets the woman of his dreams. He falls in love. And they're planning to get married, and again, he's planning to settle down, and this is when he meets the alchemist. This man teaches him how to interpret the world's signs, so to speak, what the world is telling you, how it's leading you throughout your life. And again, he starts moving on in his journey to get to Egypt and to dig up that treasure. And eventually, he finally does get there. He's got 1 piece of gold left to his name, and he starts digging for that treasure. And as he does, these marauders come out. They attack him, they rob him, 3rd time robbed. And as he's digging, they assume since he had 1 piece of gold that he probably has more. So they start beating him. And because he was digging, they assume maybe he had buried treasure. So they're threatening him, they're beating him. And it says they got him to about 1 inch of his life when he finally just looked up at them and said, I don't have anything else. I had a dream. And I traveled from my village in Spain all the way here to the pyramids because a dream told me a treasure was buried here at the base of the pyramids. And one of the men looked at the other and said, let him go. And he looked down at the boy and he said, I had a dream once too. I had a dream that a treasure was buried outside of a church next to a tree. And he described this all to the boy, and a smile came over his face because he realized it was the church in his village back in Spain. So he goes back, starts digging, and sure enough, there's the treasure. And as he digs it up, as he's found it, he kind of looks up and says, well, why did I have to go through all that? And the voice responds, if you hadn't, you never would have saw the pyramids. You see, his treasure never was finding this gold and jewels. It was his personal legend that he was seeking out was that he wanted to travel. And by having done so, he went out, he met all these people. He met this king that taught him so much. He met the alchemist. He met the crystal merchant. He met this woman that he fell in love with and still intended to go back and marry. And he learned so much, and he also impacted their lives, all because he stepped out and followed, he sought out his personal legend, as they said it. Now, this book got me thinking about my life quite a bit. And looking back, I've always been a writer all my life. And when it was time to go to college, I had decided to study screenwriting initially, and I got involved in drama. And as I did that, I just absolutely loved being on the stage. I'd look out and see all the people, watching the performances and the performers and enjoying themselves, and you could just tell they were having such a great time, and I loved it. And then I continued on in my life. I got married, I had children, I started to settle down. I got very heavily involved in church for several years. I did continue writing, and I just kept going on, but I wasn't really doing what I wanted to do. And then I eventually did get divorced. And after my divorce, the one thing that I knew I had to do, it just kept going through my mind, Jack, you got to get back on stage. And I'd always thought about performing stand-up comedy. So I found an open mic at a comedy club. I went out, and it went wonderful, and I enjoyed it. I loved performing comedy, and it took off. I did really well. Right off the bat, I was booking gigs. Things were going. I was enjoying it. And then what ended up happening is I got custody of my children, which was a wonderful blessing, but I couldn't continue going to comedy clubs, having my children home. And then I had my accident, which left me with some physical deformities. So between having my children and my physical problems, I couldn't continue performing comedy shows. I couldn't be on stage for 30, 45 minutes on the weekend or even on weeknights while the kids were home. So I stopped doing that. And like I said in the first episode, there was a period where I went into kind of a dark time. I went kind of into a funk. Things just weren't working in my life until I got a hold of those Tony Robbins tapes that I had spoken about, the personal power tapes. And after I read The Alchemist, I was thinking about those tapes again, and there was a point where it was talking about figuring out what it is you want to do with your life and doing what it takes to really make that happen. And I thought, what is it exactly that I want to do? Well, life can be difficult. People have a lot of stress, a lot of problems, things I've said on this show before. But if I can make them laugh for even 5 minutes, that's 5 minutes that they're not stressed, they're not focused on the concerns of the world, they're not worried about anything. And if I can do that, then I feel like I've made a difference, like I've done something. And as I thought about it, I said, it's through the writing, I do the same thing. Being on stage, speaking or acting or whatever it is, I do the same thing. And I realized it was never really being on stage or writing the books that I loved. What I loved was giving people something that could help them push away their cares for a while. And that's what I really feel like I want to do with my life. That's my personal legend. And I mean, I am writing. I just finished another novel. I've got another that'll be done in about another couple weeks to a month maybe. And I am doing Toy Talk. I'm getting to speak to people. From looking on YouTube, at least a couple hundred people are watching episodes of this show. And that's a couple hundred people that are taking their mind off their worries for even just that half hour. Man, for me, that's doing something. And what I want to do is I want to encourage everyone out there to seek, what is it you love to do? What is it you want to do or feel you're supposed to do with your life? And do it. Now, I'm not telling you to quit your job or, not to leave your career. You may have a family you need to support. You may enjoy your job. What I am saying is that once you figure out exactly what it is you want to do, find time to do it. Whatever it is that you enjoy to do, I encourage you, find time to do it. It'll make your life a lot easier. It'll bring more joy into your life, and likely it'll help others. It'll make the world a bit of a better place. Now, hold on just a few moments. We're going to cut to messages, and I'll be back with our Toy of the Week.
I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid. They got a million toys at Toys R Us that I can play with. I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid. They got the best for so much less. You really flip your lid.
From bikes to trains to video games, it's the biggest toy store there is.
Gee whiz!
I don't want to grow up, 'cause baby, if I did, I couldn't be a Toys R Us kid. More games, more toys. Oh boy,
I want to be a Toys R Us kid.
Now, welcome back. Now, as a toy collector, I've said before, I like to go out several places, kind of hunting for toys, seeking out toys, as we're talking about seeking this week. And like any other collector of anything, I've got kind of my wish list of things that I'm really hoping to find. You know, you don't often find them, but when you do, man, you get excited. It's just, oh man, I've been looking for that, and there it finally is. And there was one toy that it took me 2 years, a little over 2 years. If I remember exactly, it was 26 months. And I finally found it. I was down at Todd Farm one day, and there he was, my Charlie McCarthy ventriloquist dummy. Now, to give a little bit of a background about him, Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy were a ventriloquist team. As a young child, I believe it was in around 1910, Edgar Bergen picked up a book called The Wizard's Way, and he started studying ventriloquism. And when he was 16 years old in 1919, he saved up $35, which was a lot of money in 1919, especially for a 16-year-old. And he went to a wood carver, and he had the wood carver carve out the head of a ventriloquist dummy for him. And he gave him the design of a little red-headed newspaper boy in his neighborhood. And Charlie McCarthy was born. He made the body himself, and at 16 years old, Edgar and Charlie started on the vaudeville scene. And eventually they wound up on their own radio show, which is where they found the majority of their fame. And it was called the Chase and Sanborn Hour. It was one of the most popular shows on radio. Had a lot of guests like Mae West, Marilyn Monroe, all the celebrities of the day. And I always find it kind of amazing that Edgar Bergen made it as a ventriloquist on radio. Nobody could tell whether he was moving his lips or not. And for the next, approximately 50 plus years, from 1919 until 1978, Charlie McCarthy and Edgar Bergen were an inseparable team.
You keep on interrupting me, young man, and I may not finish this story.
Well, that's the best news we've had so far.
The story gets better as it goes along.
Well, it can't get worse, all right. Yeah. Now, what happens now?
Well, I'll tell you. Now, where was I?
I don't know. You were sitting there laying an egg.
No.
I don't think you're good for television.
All right.
Oh, you see, that's the trouble with television. You gotta memorize.
All right.
You were telling a story.
Oh, yes, I was telling a story.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm practically doing a single up here.
All right.
They did have one other dummy by the name of Mortimer Snerd, and the two or the three of them, but always Charlie, were together right up until 1978 and their last performance when they were together in the Muppet movie. And if you recall, when Miss Piggy was, just before she was crowned as the queen of the beauty pageant, before we saw Miss Piggy for the first time, you'll remember that Charlie kind of turned to Edgar and said,
"You're not going to believe who the winner is, folks. Oh, come now, Charlie. It's their movie. Oh, so 'tis.
and of course Edgar tells him it's their movie, they know, and out comes Miss Piggy for the first time. And that was the last time that Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy were ever seen. He died very shortly after that. I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe I've heard that Edgar died the next day. He's not the oldest version. There are wooden ones. He does have all the little techniques here. He can move his, open and close his mouth, and unfortunately he does have some damage to his hat. But other than that, the dummy himself is in excellent condition. As you can see, the hands were still in the plastic when I got them. He was still in his box. It was an open box, but he was still sealed in it. Man, I love him. He's got his monocle, he's got his hat, his little outfit, his shoes. He's in excellent condition, and he's just a great addition to my personal toy collection. Well, we're going to cut to one more set of messages, and we'll be right back with our guest for this week.
Hey, Bergen opened the parquet for Mortimer. Yeah.
Mortimer, yeah?
Butter.
Oh, I'll be darned. It talks.
Butter.
I thought it was parquet.
Well, taste it.
Oh, I will. What do you think? Light, creamy, well, must be butter. Yeah, I guess so.
Parquet.
Well, whatever you say.
Parquet margarine from Kraft. The flavor says
Butter.
Well, as I've said many times before on Toy Talk, is I like to go out and hunt for toys, and again, I go to auctions, flea markets, thrift stores, all over the place. And when you start doing that, you eventually start running into some of the same people. You get to know each other, and a lot of the people collect different things, and some collect the same things you collect. And my guest this week is someone who I run into just about on a weekly basis, especially in the summer, and we collect a lot of the same stuff. So let's welcome to Toy Talk, Eric Maramaldi.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Eric. Now, if I remember correctly, I think we met originally at an auction in Seabrook. Is that correct?
Yep, we definitely did.
Absolutely. And it was Crown Auctions. They've since shut down. They have their old store. We were just talking about it, which is in Medford.
Yep.
And then they've apparently opened another store way up in Maine, a little too far away for us to really get to. But
yeah, it's up on Antique Alley. I don't know the address, but they decided to go further north.
Yeah, and I have no idea how they're doing there, but they used to have that auction every Wednesday night, Crown Auctions, and we were there just about every week.
Every Wednesday.
And I found a few good things there. I honestly can't remember anything specifically that stayed in my collection, but I've bought a lot of stuff that I know I've sold and passed on to other people's collections. Do you remember anything specific that you got out there?
I've gotten a lot of stuff there.
They have a lot.
They have a lot. I usually go for the box lots. I'll look in the boxes just to see if there might be a hidden gem per se or something I think that's worth the price of the box. Other times I've bid on things that I know, they have a specific type of clientele there. I know what they want, and usually the stuff I want is not stuff they want.
And that's one of the things I loved about Crime too, is they do have a specific clientele, which is usually a lot of times like jewelry and coins. There's not a lot of people there looking for toys.
No,
when they
not
showed
at
up,
all.
we would grab some old stuff dirt cheap.
Very cheap. I got G.I. Joe, I think it was the Marauder with the missiles.
Yes.
I got that for $20 and they had 10 figures on it. It was complete.
See, I remember once at the end of the night, I just knew that it was a Remco. It was this big giant like Viking ship. And
yes.
At the end of the night, nobody was bidding on it. I think you were there that night and left, if I'm correct.
I did.
It was kind of like the end of the night thing, and he's like, well, we'll start the bidding at $2. And I was like, geez, I'll go $2. That thing ended up selling for like close to $200 on eBay.
Which is funny you say that because I recently picked up, and I don't know if it was left over from that auction, but I have that boat almost complete in the box.
And it was from Crown.
The Remco Big Caesar?
Yeah, absolutely. That was the name of it.
That's what I have, yep.
Yeah, it was a pretty popular. I had no idea. I just said for $2, I know it's an old like '60s Remco. It was worth grabbing a shot on. But I've been the same way out there. And now that you say it, digging through the boxes, I remember one time I bought a box of they were just kind of old dolls that were from. A lot of them looked like they were from the turn of the century, and it sold pretty cheap. I didn't know much about them. That I said, for the price they went, which I don't remember exactly, but it was inexpensive. And then when I got to the bottom, I found like a bunch of original like. Not Barbie, but Barbie, Skipper.
Yes,
and,
yes,
I can't remember her friend's name, but I found like her best
Midge.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Midge, her best friend. And when I got to the bottom, it was all the original like '60s like Barbie counterparts, from the Barbie series. And the other thing I remember out there is, we talk about toys on this show, but I mean, that's what I keep in my collection. But like I said, I go and I buy and sell as well, like you do.
Yep.
And I remember going out there once and getting. Just cases, I think it was like 10 cases, big cases full of like old like alcohol decanters, like real fancy looking ones. And they sold like for like $20, and I think some of the decanters ended up selling for like $20 each. And I mean, it was just cases full of them.
I mean, that's the other thing too. When I primarily do toys because I collect
that's what
toys.
I collect,
But if there's something I think that's collectible and it's cheap enough, I'll take a chance. Or if I know something,
absolutely,
I'll just buy it and flip it, even
recently,
if I know I don't want it.
Right next door here in the same parking lot as ICAM was Mastrangelo's auctions, and we were just talking about that. And recently I saw like a box of old books that sold for $20. So I said, let me get it. There's probably 50 books in there. A lot of them were over 100 years old.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was great, there's some good stuff in there. I buy the toys because one, I like toys and I like to collect them, like you said. And I think we were talking about this earlier, and I said, I'm not really like an expert on any specific toy lines, mainly LJN wrestlers I know the most about, but I know enough about like every toy line to just kind of know what I'm looking for. If I see something, I know what it is. And we know a lot of people that have specific interests. Like we had Frank on a few weeks ago that did the Star Wars autographs. And we were just talking about a friend that'll probably be on at some point that collects G.I. Joes, the 1964s. But when you come across something that's just, you're at the auction, it's just like, my gosh, here's 50 of something 100 years old for $20. Well, someone's going to want it. There's people that collect different things. And I mean, we want to get that into their hands. And we make a little money. They get something they enjoy. And, hey, you can't lose on that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But we've seen each other at other places. I'm trying to think of some of the other auctions we've run into each other. Obviously, Mastrangelo's. And I think those are the two main ones. Crown. Boston Auctions.
Yes, in North Andover.
Which is in North Andover now. They used to be in Wilmington.
Yep.
And I know AJ is one of the guys out there. Maybe we'll have him on the show at some point. Who's a really kind of nice, good guy, collectible guy. And
Yep.
They often have a lot of good toys at
They do.
excellent prices. But the place we probably see each other more than anywhere else has got to be Todd Farm in the summer.
Every Sunday.
I think we see each other every Sunday. We're always there at the same time and run into each other and it's, hey, look what I found, look what I found, and we're digging through stuff. I mean, I've bought some stuff from you. We've kind of traded stuff, sold stuff, and yeah, it's always great. Like I said, we run into these people all the time, and it's always great when you actually get along with the people. You know,
yes.
Some people, it's a competition, and they don't want to see the other toy guy. You know, they're kind of upset that he's there.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, I like it that way. I've got a lot of. We've become pretty good friends. You know, we talk and trade things there, and I've got a real good friend who'll be on an episode when we do talk about wrestling toys named Chris Nicastro that I've known since high school. And Chris and I often hunt together, and we have a deal like if we go to an auction and there's something we both want, it's like, all right, we go in on it together, and then we'll sell it together. Or, you know, if we're going to keep it, we figure out what we're going to do, but we don't even make it a point not to bid against each other because it's just going to be fights, you know?
Yeah.
And you don't want that going on. But you did bring some toys in.
Yeah.
And let's take a look at what you got.
Sure.
Now, these are from your collection.
These are from mine. Some of them are from mine that I keep, and some of them are for sale that I just sell.
Sure.
But I try to find the rarer stuff, the harder to find stuff, things you don't normally see.
Yes.
This particular figure is
Yo, Adrian, it's me, Rocky.
a Lincoln Hawk figure from Over the Top.
Sylvester Stallone, yes.
Sylvester Stallone.
And of course, that's the movie where he was became the arm wrestling champion.
Yes, that is the one.
Bonding with his son on the road as a truck driver.
You know, he flips the hat. He's like, it's like a switch.
What I do is I just try to take my hat and I turn it around, and it's like a switch that goes on. And when the switch goes on, I feel like another person. I feel like a truck, like a machine.
Yeah.
So these are made by Luco. These are hard to find. Luco, you know, I'll be honest, I don't know much about them.
They were a small company. I don't think they released a whole lot.
They didn't. They were known for, my understanding is they were known for like things, you know, rack hangers and like little, you know, like corner stores. They'd make like a little plastic boat or something. So they got the over-the-top license. They came out with these. These are really cool. They're a little bigger than a 6-inch figure. You know, they have metal joints on them. What was cool about these figures is, you know, you could have,
It's got
you know,
a little turner on the back.
Yes, you get the turner on the back. And what would happen was you get this, you know, Stallone, and they made, I think, about 5 other characters in the table. So you'd put them on the table, you put him there, you could turn this, and he would arm wrestle, and you could actually fight.
Crazy thing is, these are so rare that even in this condition, we were talking about this before as well, is he would sell for about $80 on eBay right now with the arms not working, no packaging, nothing.
Yeah,
it's a pretty rare toy.
You know, as long as the paint isn't worn off. This one's in pretty good condition. There's a couple of, you know, a little bit yellowing and some spots just due to age. But I mean, it is a hard to find toy. So
and
it
people
does
like
command value.
Stallone, obviously. You know, I mean, honestly, for as much as he's done, Stallone hasn't had a lot of toys come out. There has been a line of the Rocky figures, but
Rocky,
I can't really think of much else.
Rambo.
Rambo, of course, yes.
They did Over the Top. Really,
and that's probably why it was with a little company, because Over the Top wasn't really a blockbuster film. I liked it, but it was kind of a B film, you know, and it probably wasn't being battled over by the big movie companies, you know?
No.
You know, he's kind of that muscly, you know, action star, which, you know, we love him. He was a great guy, and Rocky is probably my favorite movie series of all time. I love watching them. So, I mean, you know, there's always that soft spot for Stallone, and he's still playing Rocky well into his 70s.
Yo, Adrian, it's me, Rocky.
Yeah, it's a cool
Let's see
figure.
what else you got.
All right, so the other another thing I brought is this is an old LJN
Voltron. Yes.
Voltron. So this is the second version of Voltron. This one, although it's small, is kind of on the rarer side and hard to find complete, because when they did this figure is actually made out of rubber. The second Voltron, most people know the Lion Voltron. It has 5 lions that come together. They make Voltron.
Yes.
This one actually has, you know, these are all supposed to be 15 different ships that come together. And as they made this, like I said, it's a rubber figure, but they come apart like...
Pieces come out almost like a...
that's a car, that's a leg. This little piece here is a helicopter. You could probably see it from the side with the propellers. You know, and like I said, it's kind of on the rare side. You don't get much even remade in this Voltron.
Yeah.
But finding an older piece, especially one like this with all the pieces.
Actually, for something that every piece, so many pieces pop off, to have every piece still.
Yeah, it's totally complete.
And obviously being Voltron, I don't know the exact year, but it's got to be 80s, so it's well over 30 years old.
Oh yeah, this is 80s, definitely 80s, right after The Lions came out. This came out, and it really wasn't that popular. That's the other thing. You know, this isn't like the most sought after piece, but people that collect Voltron, they want it because you just don't
Voltron was
have
always kind of like, it's popular, and we definitely look back on it as a show we loved, and we liked it as a kid.
Yeah.
But in all reality, it was always kind of secondary to Transformers, and really kind of, I don't know if I would put it second ahead of GoBots or slightly behind GoBots.
I put it ahead of GoBots because
yeah.
GoBots is, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
I think people like the figures with GoBots more than the show. The show was kind of bad.
Yeah, I mean, the big difference was, like you said, the Voltron was different pieces coming together.
Yeah.
Where the Transformers, where they transformed from one thing to another.
Yeah, and
so
they
were
started-
slightly different, but there was a lot of similarities.
And I think when Voltron came out, I think, and I'm not sure of the timeline, so don't quote me, but that's when they started doing the Constructicons and things like that, the 5 construction vehicles that
think
would
that
come
may be
together to
true,
make
now that you say it.
Devastator.
Yeah.
I think they're like, oh, we could do this with this, and you know,
I never
that's
thought about it. And really, I was never a big fan of these toys or the show in general, but
Yeah.
I recently took my son who loves them, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie,
yeah.
and I never really thought about the connection, but it's the several different pieces coming together
Yeah,
to form the one big thing, and I don't remember its name specifically.
the
but
Megazord. I think is
Megazord. But I could be wrong, and I don't know if you've heard anything, but I kind of think I've heard something recently about a Voltron movie that's kind of in the works.
I know they revived the series on
Maybe that's what I heard on Netflix.
a
Now
cartoon.
that you say it, yes.
I don't know. I mean, I could easily see them making a movie for it. They have the technology now,
yeah,
but I
it'd
don't
be
know
a
of
good-
anything in the works.
It would be a good-looking live-action movie. I don't know if it would be a great movie, but it's one of those where the special effects would be great.
Yeah.
So I've always been kind of on movies where I want a better storyline, but it's fun to watch those, and see the different things.
And everybody loves robots. Every guy likes robots.
Well, it's one of those lines where it's a great thing because, like you said, they like robots, they like the transforming stuff in general, and you're gonna get the kids just on the fact that it's a robot, and then you're gonna get their parents on the fact that they grew up watching the show.
Exactly.
So it's a money making movie.
Yeah.
It's not anything that's gonna go out for Best Picture by any stretch.
No,
but-
definitely not.
Yeah, but Voltron's a great line.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool figure. It's like I said, it's hard
Yeah.
to find. One of the other ones I brought, and
And now this is an interesting one to mention.
this, when I was a kid, I absolutely loved the Gummy Bears
Gummy
cartoon.
Bears, yes.
I, really did not know they made any toys of this until
I honestly
I
didn't
got
either.
this in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And then after doing some
box
research
lot,
on it, the box lot, they did make these in the 80s, but they were marketed. Fisher-Price made these. And
So they were basically preschool toys.
Yes, they were in the little kids
Okay.
section, so you never really saw them.
Okay.
Well, as an
what it
older kid, if
reminded
you like
me
the
of
show.
when you brought it in was in the first episode, I remember I had Rachel on, who isn't really a toy collector, but was with me when I first started collecting. And I remember when she brought in that little PVC snork. And the first thing I said was like, what's more 80s than the snorks? Well, the Gummy Bears, man.
Yeah.
I mean, when it came down to it, there was all those little kind of cheesy, cartoony.
All those things.
Yeah,
And
they
there
were
weren't
great.
a lot of toys. And
No.
I've never in person seen another one of these. I've seen them on eBay and stuff, and they do command, for an old Fisher-Price toy, price-wise, he's probably like, in this condition, probably like $20, $25. So they're not super cheap, but you just
It's
don't
amazing
find them.
when you get those things how much it skyrockets when they're in the package.
Oh, if a package,
that's
these figures are probably anywhere from $60 to $80, depending on the character.
Absolutely.
But yeah, you just don't find them. That's why I
No,
thought
that's
this
what
was
it
one
is.
of the
It's
more
nothing.
unique
It's really
pieces.
just kind of it's just a little piece of plastic, but it doesn't do anything. But it's
it's got the
cool,
legs
yeah.
that barely move and
Yeah.
the arms that barely move. I don't know of any play sets or anything with it. I
Mm-hmm.
think they did these figures and they did, like the snorks that she had, the little PVCs.
Little PVCs, yeah.
But yeah, that's it. They didn't really do much of anything else for this.
Absolutely. Well, and it's great to have it on the show. And Todd Farm opens up again in just a couple of weeks, April 8th. I'm sure.
Snow depending, I hope.
Yeah, gosh, that's true. We're kind of having this late snow in the spring this year. But
Yep.
I'll be seeing you a lot more often. I haven't seen you much over the winter. It's good catching up and getting to see some of the stuff that's actually in your collection.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Look forward to seeing you again over the next few weeks. And Again, thanks for being on Toy Talk.
All right, thanks, Jack.
All right,
Anytime.
man. All right, we'll be
Thanks.
seeing you soon. All right, and guys, we'll be back again in just about a month's time with the 5th episode of Toy Talk.